Hello, welcome to Gameworms. I'm your host, Brian Triel, and today we're going to be talking about the Winnu, one of the factions in Twilight Imperium 4. And the Winnu have had a lot of changes since the third edition of Twilight Imperium, several years back. Because back then, it was kind of a faction that was kind of a jack of all trades. It just kind of had like little interesting abilities that it could do. Whereas it's kind of the opposite now, where it is got like a very strong path to victory, but it feels almost like a do or die sort of a situation. So anyways, let's take a look at their history. So the Winnu come from the planet Winnu, and many thousands of years ago, they were not doing so great. There were lots of wars going on. There was plagues everywhere. Their environment was collapsing, and they were going to die out. And so they had kind of witnessed, they were there for the Lazak's overthrow of the Mahact and their takeover. And they kind of saw the Lazak's as like a beacon of hope and light and stability in the galaxy. And so they reached out to them for help. And the Lazak's were extremely kind and generous in extending aid to the Winnu. And the Winnu were very, very grateful for this and basically said they wanted to join the Lazak's empire. And this was before any of the others had joined the empire. So they were the first one to extend a hand of servitude, basically. So a whole bunch of people from Winnu, like half the planet, and they weren't called the Winnu at this time, they were called Winnarans. So over half of the Winnarans from the planet Winnu moved in with the Lazak's, and they got a lot of the jobs. It turns out they were really, so they were known kind of for being like hot-headed and kind of self-righteous and proud and all that sort of thing. But they really had gifts for detail and bureaucracy and administration and that sort of thing. So they took a lot of roles among the Lazak's to make them very functional, so they could actually, rule a great empire. So a lot of counseling positions and stuff like that. So they're kind of the caretakers and, all that sort of thing. And at some point, the Lazak's moved their base to the Mechatol Rex to kind of be more central in the galaxy, and the Winnu went with them, and the Winnarans, went with them. And so they kind of, for a while there, they were kind of separated. The Winnarans living on Mechatol Rex with the Lazak's kind of were now separated from the Winnu back on the home planet. But the ones back on the home planet still saw themselves as very, had a strong sense of allegiance still to the Lazak's. So they'd still adopt a lot of their art and culture and everything like that. And they very much prided themselves in having this. And what happened is during the, when everybody, the war where everybody, was fighting against the Lazak's, the Winnarans were not fighting against the Lazak's, and in fact resented the fact that everyone else was fighting the Lazak's. But there was a great scourge where the enemies of the Lazak's, the other great races, were kind of just wiping out a lot of their art and culture, and all the other worlds and things like that. So really the only world that had a strong preservation of Lazak's art and culture was Winnu. And on top of this, of course, they're adding their own, art and culture and development and things like that. So then when the war ended and kind of everybody started retreating back to their parts of the galaxy, you had the Winnarans. So now you have two groups of people that have kind of distinguished themselves. The Winnarans are now the ones that live on Mechatol Rex, and they stayed as caretakers or stewards of Mechatol Rex. So they're still maintaining the archives and things like that, but a lot of the kind of the cultural stuff had still been kind of destroyed, through attacks and bombings and all sorts of things. And then the Winnu back on their planet, no longer really associated with the Winnarans, and so the Winnu are the ones that are now back on their homeworld. The Winnarans are the one on Mechatol Rex. So the Winnu still kind of saw themselves as they saw the Winnarans as kind of like backwater, servile. They subjected themselves to servitude for their whole existence. So the Winnu saw themselves as kind of better than the Winnarans. Because it's like, we loved the Lazak's culture, we've nourished it, but we've maintained our own independence, and we're better than you guys. So kind of very proud. And so when everybody started going back to Mechatol Rex to try to reform the Galactic Council, the Winnu kind of resented it because they're like, well, you guys are all the ones that destroyed the Galactic Empire in the first place. You guys don't have any right to rule. So they basically came, there's actually a name here, dude named, give me a second, Muad'Di Farouk. So some guy named Muad'Di Farouk, who was their leader, went to Mechatol Rex and he told the Winnarans, he's like, look, you guys, you're part of us. Just rejoin us. Give us the throne. There's no need for all this bickering over who's going to be in charge of the Empire now. Obviously, it should be us. But the Winnarans weren't so keen on just letting the Winnu come in and take over. They didn't really see themselves as part. I mean, they kind of still knew they had that familial ancestral connection, but they didn't really feel like the Winnu just had a right to take it over, where they saw themselves kind of like like the lawful heirs of the Empire. The Winnarans are like, no, we're going to talk this out or work this out. But they didn't really want to offend the Winnu, but they knew they would, and they did. And so the Winnu became very upset and kind of took up arms. They're like, okay, fine, if you're not going to play ball, we're going to do this the hard way. So the Winnu throwing their hat in the ring, they're basically saying, look, we're the rightful heirs. You guys are all interlopers. And actually, you guys were the ones that ruined the Empire in the first place. So, they see it as their kind of divine right to rule. So how do they play? Like I was saying before, they pretty much want to gun it for Mechatol Rex. So a lot of their abilities and technologies are designed to help them take and hold Mechatol Rex. And one of the weaknesses they had prior to the Prophecy of Kings expansion was that they could take Mechatol Rex easily enough, but they couldn't maintain both it and their home system, which they need to score a lot of their abilities, to score points. They couldn't hold them very easily. So they've got some new abilities now that will help them with that. So some people complain about them because it's kind of like all eggs in one basket type of faction. But I kind of like the idea of having one faction that can do this. But I think it would be kind of cruel for like an experienced player to pull these out against a bunch of new players who don't really know the mechanics and strategies and stuff. Kind of mean. Because, if they pull off what they need to do, they're going to win. So let's take a look at their starting stuff. So starting technology, they actually get to choose, which I think is really neat. They can choose any of the starting technologies, ones that don't have prerequisites. And the one I would choose would probably depend which tech route you want to take. So we'll take a look at their faction technologies in a bit. Because I think if I wanted to get one of the faction technologies, it would determine which initial technology I'm going to take. The starting units, they start with a carrier, a cruiser, 2 fighters, 2 infantry, 1 space dock, and 1 PDS. Quite possibly the weakest starting fleet, or at least one of the weakest starting fleets. You got a single carrier and only 2 infantry. So you're looking at pretty slow expansion on the first round unless you can pull something out. So that is one thing that kind of, cramps their gunning it to Mechatol Rex plan. Their planet itself, Winnu, is production 3, influence 4. So a lot of voting power right out of the gate. Again, some people in the galaxy must be recognizing their right to rule. They have quite a lot of influence to start. Not great production, though. Which with their small fleet, a little bit of a rough start at the beginning. Let's take a look at their abilities. So these are their faction abilities. They have blood ties. You do not have to spend influence to remove the Custodian's token from Mechatol Rex. So Mechatol Rex has a token on it at the beginning of the game, and the first person who can go into the system and pay 6 influence and land on Mechatol Rex gets, not only do they get the planet, but they also get a point, the first one to do it. And they can get in there right away, because they don't have to worry about building up that 6 influence. Then they have Reclamation. After you resolve a tactical action during which you gained control of Mechatol Rex, you may place 1 PDS and 1 Space Dock from your reinforcements on Mechatol Rex. So not only are they taking it very easily with blood ties, but they basically get to skip around in terms of setting up a defense there. And they're going to have other abilities that are going to help boost that as well. As far as units go, they don't have any special units like a lot of the other factions. Their flagship, of course, is unique. The Salai Sai Corian. When this unit makes a combat roll, it rolls a number of dice equal to the number of your opponent's non-fighter ships in the system. Yeah, I could do without that. And it hits only on a 7. The other problem with it is, like, as soon as somebody has advanced fighters, a single fighter will take that thing out in a one-on-one fight, because, it won't be able to shoot back. So, I don't know if I see that one come out very... Of course, I haven't seen people play the Winnu very often, but I've played them before. I don't think I even bothered with their flagship. Okay, so let's take a look at their mech, though. What you got here, the Reclaimer. After resolve a tactical action during which you gained control of this planet, you may place 1 PDS or Space Dock from your reinforcements on this planet. So the neat thing with that is combining that with your Reclamation ability, you can basically, if you take Mechatol Rex and land a mech on it, you get to put on a Space Dock and 2 PDSs right out of the gate. So pretty nice little setup for a quick start. And of course, you got the small fleet, but a quick start you can get yourself to Mechatol Rex really quickly. Their faction technology. So they have Lazak's gatefolding and hegemonic trade policy. And it's interesting because you have a 2 blue and a 2 yellow. And that's what I was saying before, like, which technology I might take first might depend if I want to take one of these. Let's take a look at what they do. So the Lazak's gatefolding, during your tactical actions, if you do not control Mechatol Rex, treat its system as if it contains both an alpha and beta wormhole. Action, if you control Mechatol Rex, exhaust this card to place 1 infantry from your reinforcements on Mechatol Rex. So it just gives you, I would say this is very dependent on the map. If you have a map where it looks like it's going to be really hard to get to Mechatol Rex, because maybe of like supernova or something in the way, and you're close to an alpha or beta wormhole, then maybe you're going to need the Lazak's gatefolding, in which case I'd probably take something like anti-mass deflectors or sling relay at the beginning. But besides that situational circumstance, if I were going to choose one of these, if I wanted either of them, I'd probably go with hegemonic trade policy. Exhaust this card when 1 or more of your units use production. Swap the resource and influence values of 1 planet you control until the end of your turn. The value of this, of course, being that since Mechatol Rex it's a production 1 but influence 6 planet, but you can swap those values, which means you can build like tons of units on there real quickly. If you get this. And so if I were going to go this route, then I'd choose one of the yellows. So I can't remember what the new one is, but I know it's the Sarween Tools. Hold on, I got them right here. Sarween Tools or the Scanlink Drone Network. So yeah, I think these guys, maybe Sarween Tools, I don't know. All right, but anyways, I would say 90% of the time, if I were going to choose one of my faction texts, that's the one I'd go with. Okay, although the blue texts are really good, so who knows. Alright, let's take a look at their leaders. So we've got very political sort of faction here. We do have some interesting footage of just a little bit of a discussion we got from the Winnu homeworld.
Your Highness Pitt the Younger.
Why, hello there, young shaver me lad. I say, here's fun. I've a shiny sixpence here for the clever fellow who can tell me which hand it's in. Huh? Oh, school. What, half holes, is it? Yeah, I bet you can't wait to get back and get that bat in your hand and give those balls a good walloping, eh?
Mr. Pitt is the Prime Minister's.
Oh, go on. Is he? What, young snotty here?
I'd rather have a runny nose than a runny brain.
Eh?
Excuse me, Prime Minister, but we do have some lovely jelly in the pantry. I don't know if you'd be interested at all.
Don't patronise me, you lower middle class yobbo. What flavour is it?
So a bit of a, bit of a kind of an arrogant, hot-headed sort of a people, and politically oriented. But let's take a look at what they got. So we have their agent is Barakar Barakon, the Arbiter of Divine Right. When one or more of a player's units use production, you may exhaust this card to reduce the combined cost of the produced units by 2. And I think this is going back to what I was saying about hegemonic trade policy, like taking Sarween tools for that. Really boosts on that really well. That's essentially, a free carrier or something like that. So you're saving 3. So that's pretty good. I'd say that's actually one of the stronger agents. Let's take a look at the Commander. And the Commander is unlocked by control Mechatol Rex or enter into a combat in the Mechatol Rex system. Again, this probably needs to be your focus anyway, to get on Mechatol Rex as soon as possible. And what Rakar Rakani gives you is during combat, apply +2 to the result of each of your unit's combat rolls in the Mechatol Rex system, your home system, and each system that contains a legendary planet. So this is one of the abilities that really boosts their all eggs in one basket goal of taking and holding Mechatol Rex. Because before the problem was, even if they had to divide their fleet between their home system and Mechatol in order to score points. But now they get +2 to all their attack rolls, so they can get a lot farther with a little bit smaller fleets. So I think a pretty important one to get out. And you should be getting that early, because again, you want to be gunning for Mechatol as quickly as you can, probably. The hero is named Mathis Mathinus, the Reclamation Executor, unlocked by having scored 3 objectives, of course. The ability itself is the Imperial Seal. Action, perform the primary ability of any strategy card. Then choose any number of other players. Those players may perform the secondary ability of that strategy card, then purge this card. I think a lot of potential uses, and it seems like it's a pretty big downside when you're also giving everyone the secondary. So obviously if you're playing Warfare, you're giving like everyone else a free build. Not a build where they don't have to activate a space dock. But if you think about it, the best use of this is actually to get Imperial. Because Imperial is going to be, especially when you're on Mechatol, you're getting a point for holding Mechatol. But if you're getting close to the end game, people are going to be taking it so you can't get it. So this just ensures, and I would probably use this as a game ender. People can't stop you from ending the game by preventing you from taking Imperial, basically, with this guy. So pretty clutch hero there. Very important to their overall strategy, I'd say. Their acquiescence is an interesting promissory note. At the end of the strategy phase, exchange one of your strategy cards with a strategy card that was chosen by the Winnu player, then return this card to the Winnu player. So I would say maybe don't give this out until you have your hero. Because if you're trying to get Imperial, whoever you give this to is going to probably just take it from you. But if you have your hero, it doesn't matter. So, yeah. But pretty interesting. So all I have to say about these guys. So just I'm going to try to place an anthem in here. Don't know if it'll stick. But again, if it doesn't, then the link to it will be in the description. So have a good evening and good gaming.
If I were king of the forest, not queen, not duke, not prince, my regal robes of the forest would be satin, and not of cotton, and not chintz. I'd command each thing, be it fish or fowl, with a woof and a woof and a royal growl. As I click my heel, all the trees would kneel, and the mountains bow, and the bulls kowtow. And the sparrow would take wing. Fie, fie, were a king
Each rabbit would show respect to me. The chipmunks genuflect to me. The McHale would lash. I would show compassion for every underling. Fie, or king. Just
Your Majesty, if you were king, you wouldn't be afraid of anything?
Not nobody. Not no-how.
Not even a rhinoceros?
Impossibles.
How about a hippopotamus?
Why, I'd trash him from top to bottomless.
Supposing you met an elephant?
I'd wrap him up in cellophane.
What if it were a brontosaurus?
I'd show him who was king of the forest.
How?
How? Courage. What makes a king out of a slave? Courage. What makes the flag on the mast to wave? Courage. What makes the elephant charge his tusk in the misty mist or the dusky dusk? What makes the muskrat guard his musk? Courage. What makes the sphinx the seventh wonder? Courage. What makes the dawn come up like thunder? Courage. What makes the Hottentot so hot? What puts the ape in apricot? What have they got that I ain't got?
Courage.
You could say that again.